I'm super excited you guys are here. I've been excited to talk about this book. It's called The Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin. And here to chat more about that, we have Matt Wiliford and Michele Howard, both from the Traverse Area District Library. Colleen loved this book.
I loved most of this book.
I loved most of this book, too.
Michele loved most of the book. Matt and you and I are
I read this book. Let's talk about it.
He read it. Well, so we all finished the book, so that's number one, right?
Yes.
Better than last month.
There you
That's
go.
true. Good.
That in itself, we're doing better. But the Immortalists, if we can kind of give a bit of a premise here, it's 4 children, and we're kind of following their separate stories. There is something that happens in the beginning that sets the tone for the rest of the book that really grabbed me right away. Colleen, I know you and I talked about this. I was instantly into this book within the first 5 pages, right?
Oh, I was definitely into it. And I mean, I would say 3/4 of it, I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
I didn't want to put it down. I would make excuses not to go places so I could stay home and read. Honestly, I did that because it was that good.
So this book really explores, it explores to a degree how we shape our own destinies. And if we can talk a little about the siblings, they basically go to see a gypsy of sorts in 1960s New York City. And I believe it is Daniel that is very, very... He wants his siblings to go see this gypsy, and they find out that there's a woman in New York City that can tell you when you're going to die. And immediately I'm like, yep, I'm in. I want to see this too. And you know, immediately we all ask ourselves, well, would you want to know? Do you want to know?
Which is such a great question.
I
You could
love
ponder that forever and a day.
Me too.
Daniel is the eldest brother of 4 children. So he's the second born, I believe. Has an older sister, Varya. She sort of starts out the conversation, and there's a lot of different voices in this book too, which gets a little confusing. But the idea of, do you believe that the siblings' fate was preordained, or do you believe that they made this happen when they're told by this woman, this sort of fortune teller, that they when they were going to die? So that was the first question I wanted to ask all of you.
I think it's a combination. You know, when I read it, I'm like, what if you know? You know, like, what if you knew you had a cancer gene? What if you knew?
Which some people can
They do.
know
You
now.
can find out, right? And I had a friend who purposely didn't find out. And so that's how I related it to me is, would I find out if I had a cancer gene? And like these kids were like, yeah, let's find out when we're going to die.
But they're kids.
But they're
too.
kids. Yeah, that's the thing.
And I was imagining, because I have 4 siblings, we all would have gone, and you know, one of us would have peed our pants and we would have been scared, but we probably would have told each other when we died.
Yeah.
They didn't.
They didn't speak to each other about it.
That's the turning point. That's what totally grabbed me about this book, was they didn't tell each other.
The other part of this book, and Matt, what do you think? Do you think that to a certain degree we shape our own destinies? Or if somebody tells you something about yourself, is it human nature to go, well, I guess that must be true, so therefore I'm going to behave like I don't have a lot of time on Earth?
I think it just depends on each person's sensibilities and sort of whether they're into mysticism or the unknown, or they just want to suck the marrow out of life, or whatever that is. You know, the thing I was really struck by with, as you said, the opening of this book is about these 4 siblings in New York City. And, you know, we heard there's a gypsy that can tell you when you're going to die.
Yeah.
And so there's this whole youth impetuousness and curiosity and like, let's go find out. What I thought was interesting is, as I read the book, the characters still had some of that same recklessness and impetuousness that they lived their lives with. So I actually thought that there was a little bit more of a through line.
Okay.
That it wasn't
Interesting.
that how they progressed in their life wasn't a deviation or wild abandon because they knew that they were running headlong into a date with fate.
Although, you know, and I agree, though. I think they kind of kept their... I thought the other interesting part of this, though, was the peer pressure, the sibling pressure. And you had two of the siblings that really definitely wanted to go. And then you have the younger brother who's like, whatever. And the older sister who actually doesn't want to go, but doesn't feel like she's enough of a leader, or that she has, she goes along with it. She doesn't want to argue. And that ends up being, to me, that was that was a through line as well, that you're going, oh, you're just, this is your behavior. This is the way, like you're saying, you're impetuous, or you're too careful, or whatever might happen. This was narrated by the four siblings in separate sections. And I wanted to ask you about your experience when you switched sections, because I needed to shake off the personalities. Did you need to do that as well?
Yeah, I definitely had to. When I was reading them, I really felt the characters. I thought the author did such a great job to really get you into their heads and what they were thinking with this, ghost over them, or like a shadow over them of their impending death. And you don't know when you first start the chapter, but you start to really sympathize with them and feel for them. Like, oh, they have this deadline stuck in their head. But yeah, I had to walk around, take a breath.
Yeah.
But by the end for Varya, I was like, okay, let's just get this over with.
I know. I think we all felt like that. Colleen, did you feel like you kind of had to shake the other personalities off? Because you and I spoke, the first half of the book I loved.
Yeah, me too. And I wanted to know more, actually,
Me too.
about those characters. And I was hoping that that one of them at least would prove the gypsy wrong.
Me too. I thought Clara the magician would do it.
Me too.
I was
Through some
so
sort
hopeful.
of magic.
Some sort of magic, the magic of believing in herself.
And that, in all honesty, that would have been a great plot twist. There was a lot of material you could get from just that thought.
There is a point, though, you're talking about magic, and there's a lot of belief system in this book. And whether it's religious faith, or it's, even I felt with Daniel, his was more about, the guilt, maybe, because it was his idea to go see this fortune teller. And I felt like he had this, there was something going on there. It was less religious. It was not magic with maybe Clara, the magician. It was very much like, oh gosh, I need to fix this, kind of believing in himself that he could solve the mystery. Did you feel that?
Yeah, for those of you listening that haven't read the book, the family dynamic that's really sort of the stage for this whole storyline is, this is a Jewish family, devout, practicing Jewish family, and the father passes away, and so there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of tradition.
Yeah.
Their ancestors, whether their parents, family members, were survivors of the Holocaust. So there's also that guilt and through line and tradition that anchors this. So I think that, the kids' interest in sort of non-traditional or mystic or gypsies or something else was, again, sort of like this. They wanted to be their own people, or they were sort of felt trapped in this traditional system. Also because there was a family, dad was a tailor and dressmaker, and it was sort of this feeling that you were going to inherit the family business and sort of that. So I thought that a lot of this was all about sort of like, do you stay in your lane?
Yeah.
Or do you go off on your own highway of life?
Well, and do you think, though, if the children hadn't gone to see the fortune teller, if they hadn't heard those dates, of their when they were going to die, if they would have made different choices? Because I think that's one of the things I liked about this book, is that one of the children in his story, I thought, there's no way, if you hadn't done this, if you hadn't been sort of forced by your older siblings to go and see this fortune teller, there's no way that you would have ended up living the life you lived, albeit short life, but the life that you lived. You wouldn't have made those decisions because you had the guilt. You knew, I'm supposed to just take over Dad's business, right?
Yeah, and in this case, so Daniel, leaves home. He's the youngest. And he basically runs away with his sister to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then what the storyline is that, he's gay.
Yeah.
And he, and I think one of the cool things about this story actually was the passage of time is marked by historical events that you, if you're a reader of our age, you go, oh, yeah, okay, Harvey Milk. and okay, the AIDS epidemic and the 1980s, and then the next chapter, the way that that time has really passed is because there's this other relevant current event or historical event. But
I do feel,
and
though,
people are still alive.
right?
Yeah.
And I do feel, though, that I thought that was a little bit too. I saw that coming very much.
Yeah.
When you realize that Simon, the youngest son, is homosexual and that he's going to San Francisco, and this is pre-AIDS
That's the
breakout, I was like,
80s.
okay, well, now I know what's going to happen.
Right.
So that was a little too on the nose.
Yeah.
But some of the other characters, specifically Clara, that was one of my favorite characters. But let's skip to the book's ending here with Varya. And, I think we all sort of agree that Varya was the least, at least I would like to say this, I think she was the least compelling character.
I agree also. And so was her situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was sort of somewhat involved in the entirety of the novel. And at the end, though, she had played it so safe that she never really lived. Even if she did live longer than everyone else, she just didn't live at all. And that was something that was so disheartening to me, and I was angry about that.
Yeah, I was too
Yeah,
disappointed.
I was so angry at her too, because I thought, if it was me, I would have done the opposite. If I was the youngest and I was told I was going to die soonest, I would have stayed with my family, because I would say, oh, I only have so much time left.
Yeah.
But if someone told me I'm guaranteed 88, I'd be like, woohoo, let's go. I'm going to make it to 88. I pretty much probably no matter what I do. And so I was so mad at her.
Right.
That she was given the best card. She drew the best card and she wasted it.
Yeah, she did. She wasted it, and there was something really disappointing about that, as Colleen pointed out. But after the book's ending, what do you think, happens to that character of Varya? I mean, it kind of ends, and you sort of go, okay, I don't know. A portion of me didn't really care about what happened to her because I wasn't invested in her. Do you think that was the author's intent? Because sometimes you have to have a bad guy in order for people to appreciate the other characters.
Yeah, part of me felt like hopefully maybe she'll become a motivational speaker about contacting your siblings. Like, that's what I felt like this book was like. There's 5 of us. I have an older brother that, he's not so much part of the family. I'm like, I'm calling him.
Yeah.
Because throughout the whole story, all of them, I say, just call.
Just call each other.
Just call. And so
Just be
when
in your life.
Yeah, Varya, I was like, you should walk around and tell people your story about how you didn't call your siblings. You kind of sucked.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so I was just I was mad at her.
Well, as far as this is concerned, I thought it was all in all a really good book. Was this the first novel for Chloe Benjamin? I believe? Second novel. And people seem to like it. Matt, you liked it? Are we doing out of 4 stars? Is that what we do? Or 5?
I can't remember.
5.
Out of 5.
Yeah, let's
Out
do
of 5.
5 stars.
How many
I'd give
stars?
it 3.5.
3.5 for Matt. Okay. How about you, Michele?
I would give it a 4.
A 4? Colleen?
I'm also going to give it a 4.
I'm going to give it a 3.5. So that's all pretty good.
What if
pretty
you
good.
had to rate the first half?
Then I would give it a 5.
I'd give it a
Yeah.
5 also.
5. I love
I
that.
would give it a 5.
Lots of potential.
We should have all stopped reading at
Right.
that point.
No?
Now we
But
know.
the discussion would be half as long.
Yes, it would
That's
be.
true. That's true.
Well, our next book that we're going to be reading is Michele. You said that this has been one of the most popular books at the Traverse Area District Library. People are on the waiting list for this book. It's a #1 New York Times bestseller. I think 28 weeks it's been on the bestseller list. It is called Where the Crawdads Sing. Now, this is a debut novel for Delia Owens. Now, I know she's been a co-author with a couple of other books, but they're all nonfiction. So her first novel here. And I've read about this. It looks fantastic.
It looks fantastic. And I just want to know what the secret is. That's why I thought I'd pick it, because we, have people waiting, and we have over 170 people waiting. So we keep buying copies to add so that people don't have to wait that long.
Yeah.
And the list went down a little bit and it's back up.
Yeah.
So I went to Horizon Bookstore. I bought a couple more copies and they can't keep it on the shelf.
Wow.
So
Wow,
I
now I
need
really
to
wanna
know,
read it.
what is it?
So, okay.
I'm really excited. The one employee who's worked at the library for 31 years says it's the biggest list we've ever had.
All right, guys, pick up your copy of Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. It's been called Painfully Beautiful, at once a murder mystery, a coming-of-age narrative, and a celebration of nature. This looks incredible. Try to find it. And of course, if it takes you a little time, you can hold off on listening to our book review here just by dialing up the podcast. We put this on crystalfrost.com every month, and you can share it with your book club, right? Mm-hmm. We have a video, too, that will be up this time of all of us talking about the book. And Matt's hair looks fantastic.
Really, he's growing
Good
it out.
Came
timing.
prepared today.
It looks really good.
You must have known.
All right. Thank you guys so much for coming in today.